Hey, all you Minties, this is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at the Marvel Masterworks, the Mighty Thor Volume 20, and the Black Panther Volume 3. So, stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of both of these Marvel Masterworks. Both of these books are due out in the direct market on April 21st, and then a couple of weeks later in the book market. So the very first book we're going to be looking at is The Mighty Thor, Volume 20. Now, if you're not familiar with what the Marvel Masterworks are, this is the cream of the crop. This is as good as it gets when it gets to collected editions. And I've mentioned that in the past before, and I've talked a little bit about why, and I'm going to mention it again. But this series, these Marvel Masterworks collected editions started all the way in the late 80s. So they've been going on from Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 all the way to, well, the most recent books like The Mighty Thor Volume 20. So Thor didn't always get a book every year. And I want to say that these were the first books to have a direct market cover. So on your left, that's the direct market cover for the Mighty Thor Volume 20 and a standard edition cover. And I'm pretty sure that's the way they have been doing it for decades. So here we have the Mighty Thor Volume 20. And much like all the other standard editions and direct market editions, they tell you exactly what it collects in the front. They give you a framed cover here. I'm not sure if you can tell, but there is design, there we go, going around the frame. Nice Spidey head, Thor over here if you can tell. And then the back of the book also has a frame around it. These are nice, beautifully designed books. Let's look at it under the dust jacket, and here's what under the dust jacket looks like. So this is what the underneath the dust jackets of the old school Omnis would look like. So this still has it. There, Mighty Thor Volume 20. Nothing on the back. Now, these are the same height as a Marvel trade paperback. So they're not oversized books, but they are nice hardcovers. People have asked me several times, and yeah, I just want to clarify, these are not oversized. They are standard size books. Alright, let's go ahead and get this particular volume open. Here's your bookend pages. Have this very nice, fancy, marble-like design. And Thor, Volume 20. Here we have all the credits, all the creators that worked on this particular volume. Mark Gruenwald, Ralph Macchio, Doug Moench, Bill Mantlo, Keith Pollard, and Chris Claremont. Keith Pollard doing a lot of the layouts and the pencils. Rick Leonardi. I think this is some of the earliest Rick Leonardi stuff I've seen. The table of contents where you'll find each of the issues. And then they always have an introduction. I remember from the ones that I used to collect, each one of the Marvel Masterworks had a nice introduction from somebody that was working on the book at the time. If some of the creators were gone, it would be an editor. But let's kick it off with issue 303. The cool thing and the very nice thing about collecting the Marvel Masterworks line is that these are released in chronological order. So unlike the Marvel Epic collections or the Marvel Omnibus editions, these come out in chronological order. But like I said, sometimes you get one volume of Thor every year, so you'll be waiting a while. And now we've reached the point of past Ragnarok, so the Roy Thomas stuff, and this is stuff I've never read before, so it's fun to finally have it in a collected edition. So this collects issues 303 to 304 of Thor, as well as annual number 9, and this is the stuff after, like I said, Ragnarok, Roy Thomas leaving the book, and Mark Gruenwald and Ralph Macchio bringing Thor back out of Asgard, because he had been spending a lot of time in Asgard, and they bring him back here to Midgard, Earth. This is a very powerful issue right here, and like I said, this is like some early Rick Leonardi stuff. So this is about a priest that's kind of losing his faith, and of course he meets the god of thunder. And whether or not he gets his faith restored, it's a great message. And this one's written by Doug Moench. He steps in to do a fill-in issue. But just look at this artwork compared to Rick Leonardi's later art. It just looks so different. This looks, I don't want to say basic, but it looks normal, if that makes sense. If you're familiar with Rick Leonardi's style, Let's keep going through here. There's always... Oh, they brought back the backup stories, the Tales of Asgard, to tell stories about some of the characters that were still on Asgard. There's a fight here with Airwalker and Firelord. The Nova Corps get involved. So there's a lot of Donald Blake stories through these issues. What I love about... There's a fight with Mephisto. What I love about these particular Masterworks, because I go on and on about the introductions that Roy Thomas does in the pages of the Conan Omnis, and it kind of makes me wish that no matter what omnibus they collect, each one of them would have an introduction by somebody that worked on the book at the time. So that's what I loved about this, because there's a lot of behind the scenes things happening here, like somebody leaving the book, and talking about how some of the stories were originally made up almost on the spot, how behind they were because they were working on other type of books. But yeah, you get a lot of Keith Pollard artwork through these pages. So yes, eventually both Mark Grunwald and Ralph Macchio decide to leave while still wrapping up their backup stories and Tales of Asgard. And then we have Doug Bench step in for a while. Alright, so I'm going to talk about this particular issue right here, because one, I've never read it, and two, man, this issue is powerful. There's a lot of down-to-earth, and I'm not even using that as a pun, stories here, but this is about a police officer, a white police officer, accidentally shooting a black youth, and I'll let you find out how it all wraps up, but there's this whole conflict that Odin's son is caught between, you know, members of the African American community and the police officers. It's just crazy to think that this is still relevant to this day. This issue could have been written just yesterday, and the message is still there. And it's crazy to see somebody like Thor come between two, because, you know, you're used to Thor fighting, for God's sakes, we got the Wreckers coming back. By the way, that's awesome, because the Wreckers are eating at McDonald's during this particular issue. I did enjoy that. But, you know, you have characters like that. He's fighting Loki. And then we get this particular issue right here that I've never read. And it just, I don't know. It takes me back that, you know, comics have always been an important part of our life and a reflection of what's going on in our world. So, pretty interesting that I don't hear anybody talk about that issue either. So, yes, this all wraps up with the annual, and then we'll talk about Black Panther. So here's the annual, king size annual number 9. This is what it wraps up with, and we'll look at some of the extras in the back. And here's what some of the artwork looks like. He's now reunited with Lady Sif, and of course the Warriors 3. And as far as the extras, skipping a couple of those, but we do have some original covers here with just the original artwork, no colors on them. Beautiful. And then the biographies that they put in every one of their books, and I think at the very end they still do it where they put where else you can get, yeah, some Marvel Masterworks. And as far as the build of these particular type of books, they're all the same. They have sewn binding. Now this particular volume has 336 pages. And the paper quality is this really thick, kind of a glossy tone to it, but doesn't detract from the artwork. The artwork really stands out on paper like this. The retail price for this particular volume is $75. But like I said, this is the best presentation of these stories. Maybe one day we'll get an omnibus out of this. It might be a while though. Next up, we have the Black Panther Volume 3. So on the right, again, this is the standard edition, and on the left, that is your direct market cover. Again, both of them available on the same day. It's just that the direct market cover is only available at comic book shops or places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, InStock Trades, and Tales of Wonder. While on the right, this particular cover is available everywhere, including the book market like Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So much like Thor, this does come with a nice dust jacket, and this is what it looks like underneath it. There's nothing on the back. Marvel logo up top. Black Panther. And then this is what the bookend pages look like. So we have Black Panther Volume 3. I think this might be the last volume of this series. So this collects Black Panther, the 1988 miniseries 1 through 4, as well as material from Marvel Comics Presents 13 through 37. Now, I've done an overview, and I'll get there here in a second, but there's an introduction by not only Peter Gillis, who wrote the 4-issue miniseries, but also Don McGregor, who wrote Panther's Rage, And then Jack Kirby came on the book, and they were like, sorry, Don, it's Jack the King, you gotta leave. So he never really got to finish his story arc, and he comes back to do the Marvel Comics Presents, this is an introduction by him, by Don McGregor, by the way. And it talks about how it all got started. This is so interesting how Michael Higgins was the guy, the editor, was like, no, you need to come back, man. You need to wrap up your story. We're starting a new magazine called Marvel Comics Presents. And then Michael Higgins ended up leaving the book. He ended up leaving being an editor and became a freelancer. And then Terry Cavanagh came on board, and he had to talk about like how him and Terry Cavanagh kind of bonded over some issues that were going on. And I'll talk a little bit about that here. But my favorite thing about this introduction is there's a particular rough moment in Panther's quest that Gene Colan called him about. And Gene Colan is one of my favorites, Silver Age artists. He's the guy that did Tomb of Dracula. But he called him at 11 o'clock at night saying, I can't do this particular page, man. This is wrong. And the ending to this particular phone call is so touching. Because it ends with him saying that, I miss Gene. Damn, that hit me. Because, Gene passed away, 2011, I think. So he kicks off with the 4-issue miniseries here about Black Panther and the Panther God kind of leaving Black Panther. This, interestingly enough, according to the introduction, I didn't know this, but this was originally written in 1983, the first 3 issues. And then editorial, I think it was Jim Shooter, and then a couple of his editors decided to wait on it. And I'll talk about why when I'm talking about Panther's Quest. But it wasn't until 1987, I guess, when they greenlit the series to continue, and they just had to do 1 issue. Now, all of this is written by Peter Gillis and then drawn by Dennis Cohen. So Dennis Cohen had to come back in and draw the final issue. And honestly, reading this, I totally would have missed that, because the art style still looks the same in both issues 3 and 4. Same inkers. I think the only difference is the color is this different. So let's talk about Panther's Quest, though. Alright, so here's Panther's Quest, which was previously released in this epic collection right here, Panther's Prey. Panther's Prey is not collected in here, though. So this went through the Marvel Comics Presents anthology comic series. It was a weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the schedule, anthology series that Marvel was releasing. And I talked about when I did my Black Panther Epic Collection overview that I mainly got it for X-Men. What kid my age that was into X-Men got this book because of the backup stories of Solo or Paladin or Black Panther. I've talked about how I really didn't get into Black Panther because he was always this backup character. But this story, man, it's so different reading it now, especially with the introduction, than it was back then when I was collecting these books. So I think I talked about how one day I was just like, well, I'm bored. I've read all my X-Men titles. Let's read some of these backup stories in Marvel Comics Presents. I call them backup stories, but they did share a title with, the X-Men. The X-Men were always in the front. So, not my fault. That was a decision. They knew what would sell the book. But anyway, I read it as a kid. I'm like, man, that's a pretty dark story. And it's so different now. And I did warn people when I did an overview of the Epic Collection that this story, it has a lot of rough things about it. There's the death of animals in here, kids. So there's some crimes against humanity and kids. There's sex slaves. This basic premise starts off with T'Challa looking for his mom. And then it's about fighting the apartheid, which is all part of the South African movement. And whereas X-Men was a title that was, giving a message metaphorically, hating others that don't look the same is bad. Black Panther was in your face about it. Black Panther was actually fighting atrocities that were happening in the real world. And, that's honestly what the 4-issue miniseries was about. It was about the apartheid. And the balls of these guys, these editors and the writers, to release a book like this during a time when most political leaders were for the apartheid. Now, if you don't know what that is, you can do all the research. It's no longer a thing, so I can't imagine too many people even knowing about it. But in the 80s, it was a big thing. And like I said, most political leaders at the time were for it. So to write a character that's fighting against it and the wrongs that it's doing to him and his people, even though they're fictional cities, right? There's fictional lands here, Wakanda, but damn, that took some balls to do and to run with the story. Now, the story itself, I will say, like, it's a little hard to read, not just because of the content, but also because of the dialogue. This feels like it was written back in the Silver Ages. There's a lot of narration boxes here telling the story, and man, but Gene Colan's artwork, this is so different than the stuff that he was doing. Like, remember when I showed that Namor Epic Collection? This is the Gene Colan that I remember. It has, it kind of reminds me of his run on Dracula, the Tomb of Dracula. Now, this particular volume has 400 pages and is $75. It has the exact same build, but I can look at it for you. But I wanted to mainly focus on the artwork and the story. This is a very powerful story, man. And yeah, Black Panther is just one of these characters. There's no metaphorical thing about it. He is fighting real things in life. Okay, so the cool thing that is in this, because I know you're wondering, why didn't they collect Panther's Prey in this, or all the other little stories? I'm not sure. I don't know if there's going to be a 4th volume that collects these stories back here, Panther's Prey, but what this has that the Epic Collection does not have, this is the way the covers are collected in the Epic Collection, this has the full double-page spread of the covers for the Marvel Comics Presents. Remember when I said that I would get Marvel Comics Presents because it would always feature an X-Men character, and the X-Men character to me always seemed like would take the spotlight on the front cover. See, there's Black Panther down there. Yeah, Colossus was outshining Black Panther. Cyclops, okay, that actually probably made sense for the time. But there's a lot of covers here by, there's Mike Mignola, Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson, Kevin Nolan, Walter Simonson, a little Black Panther. But yes, even I think in his final issue, he might get a top billing at shared top billing, because it might be at the bottom. There's the Eric Larson cover, and that's the fight with the Master Mold. Anyway, no, we're not talking about Nth Man. Oh, dude, I know there's 10 of us that want an Nth Man omnibus. But anyway, back to Black Panther. Let's look at the final issue. All right, so Black Panther's one of the most powerful stories. He gets to share top billing with Lockheed and Widget from Excalibur. At the time, I didn't care about any of this. I cared about this. So I guess it makes sense. But this is the double-sized epic conclusion. There's also stuff here from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, some showing not just Black Panther, but also some of the places, as well as some of his villains. And then there's an interview here from Marvel Age. There's Marvel Fanfare. This is really cool. So this is a pin-up from Marvel Fanfare number 41. And then this was the cover that they used for Panther's Quest, the trade paperback with new modernized colors. The biographies that, like I said, always put it towards the end of the Marvel Masterworks. And then what other Marvel Masterworks that are available. Now, like I mentioned, I don't mind showing you all. But this does have sewn binding. It has that thick paper that I talked about that Thor had. And that, as they say, is that. Now, when these books come out, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and the page count and build of each of these Masterworks. Let me know in the comments down below if the Masterworks are your preferred way of collecting these single issues that originally came out, or if you wait for the Epic Collections, if you're waiting for an Omnibus edition, or if you have any of the Marvel Masterworks. I always like to know who still collects the Marvel Masterworks, because to me and to a lot of people, these are as good as they get when it comes to collected editions. Not quite oversized, but also just the nicest paper and the nicest build to the books. This was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We put out videos every day. More importantly, all of you, stay healthy, stay safe, and much love.